the book of Exodus, and we're going to be in chapters 17 and 18 this morning. Although we don't have time to go through every verse in those chapters, I want to hit some key spots in it. Well, several years ago, a group of hikers were climbing Mount Rainier. Everything seemed fine early in the climb. The sky was clear, the trail was manageable, the group was moving well. But partway up the mountain, the weather suddenly shifted. The temperature dropped, the wind picked up, snow began to fall, and the trail they had been following began to disappear. One of the guides gathered the group together and said something very important. From this point on, nobody hikes alone. If someone falls behind, someone else goes with them. If someone gets tired, we slow down together. Because on this mountain, isolation is dangerous. In the mountains, people don't usually die because they're weak. They die because they're alone. And in many ways, the same thing is true for us spiritually. One of the biggest misconceptions about faith is this: if God is really with you, life should get easier. It's okay to laugh at that. I haven't experienced that in my life. I've been walking with Jesus ever since I can remember. He's all I know. He's all I remember. And I can tell you that life isn't always easy. In fact, sometimes life is extremely difficult. And because of that, we have a text this morning that we're going to explore where each one of us can gain something from it, some encouragement, some knowledge about who God is and how he interacts with us, and even some understanding about why he would draw us to a church family. For the Israelites, the moment they leave Egypt, the moment they cross the Red Sea, the moment they start experiencing God's provision, they enter their first war. Exodus 17, verse 8, we'll read it in just a minute, but it says, then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. If you remember from last week, Rephidim is where they were at, and they witnessed water come flowing from a rock. Pretty miraculous, isn't it? And right after that moment is when they face opposition. They didn't start the fight, but they had to learn how to win the battle. And what happens in this story teaches us something incredibly important. Some victories require more than strength. God's victories often come through dependence on him, support from others, and wisdom and leadership. Well, let's look at Exodus chapter 17. We'll read verses 8 through 11. Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 through 11. While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill, holding the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. So here's the first thing that we see in the text this morning. Victory begins with dependence on God. Victory begins with dependence on God. What we see in the story of the Israelites is this is their first military battle after leaving Egypt. And if you think about it, it had to have been a terrifying moment, not just because they were going into the battle, but think about their situation. Just a few weeks earlier, they're slaves in Egypt. They're not trained soldiers. They don't have any type of military tradition or strategy already in mind. They don't have seasoned generals. The Israelites that are about to fight this battle, they're farmers, they're shepherds, they're brick makers. And now suddenly, they're facing an army of warriors. But I want us to notice the strategy here. Joshua goes into the valley to fight, but Moses climbs a hill with the staff of God. And something unusual happens when Moses is on this hill. When Moses holds up the staff, Israel wins. But if his arms drop, Amalek begins to gain ground. That means the valley in the valley was connected to something happening on the hill. The outcome of the battle wasn't determined by dominance with swords. It was determined by dependence on God. The raised hands of Moses symbolizes prayer, surrender, and reliance on the Lord. Victory in the valley was connected to dependence on the hill. And this, for us, is still true today. If you're taking notes, write this down. Battles are often won spiritually before they are won physically. Battles are often won spiritually before they are won physically. I think I have experienced this a few times in my life, just being aware of the tactics of the enemy and the things that happen in the spiritual world. But I don't think that it has been more evident in my life than it was just a few weeks ago when I was in Israel. In fact, we have a few Israel friends here this morning. I think we might all be here. Hey, where's Carl? Hey, somebody call Carl, ask him where he's at. No, I'm kidding, don't do that. A group of us was in Israel just a few weeks ago, and something was more evident then than it ever has been in my life. And I'm telling you, I have always been one that was aware of spiritual warfare. I don't know that I dramatize it. I'm very aware of it. I'm very aware that it's real. But probably for the first time in my life, it was everywhere around me, at least what I felt when I was in Jerusalem. And I know with all of us that went, there's probably many different experiences that are talked about. But for me, I felt evil and I felt darkness and I felt this spiritual warfare when I was in Jerusalem. Because it was evident that the devil was trying to cover up everything that is Jesus. Not just the historical monuments and the historical walkways and stones, and not just that. But the spiritual significance of who Jesus is in our life and who Jesus is to this world. The enemy is at war trying to erase that and cover it up. And what was ironic was, especially relating to this statement, within about 24 hours of us leaving and arriving home, an actual war, a physical war started. So let me say this again, battles are often won spiritually before they are won physically. We have to know that in our own lives. In fact, Paul reminds us in Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood. So some battles in life are not just emotional. Some battles aren't just circumstantial, they're spiritual. And we have to be aware of that. Some battles that I began to think about. How about your marriage battle? I believe there's two families that the enemy is always going to be at war with: the nuclear family and the family of God. Is your marriage a battle? Parents, raise your hand if you feel like parenting is a battle. Oh. It's a battle. It's a battle when they're 10, and it's a battle when they're 11, it's a battle when they're 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. And then when you start parenting adult children, right? How about temptation? Anybody in the room besides myself struggle with temptation? It's a battle. Do you struggle with discouragement or depression? It's a battle. It's a spiritual battle. There's more happening here than just what we see on the surface, so let's keep going. Exodus chapter 17, verses 12 and 13. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. So here's the second thing we see in the text this morning. The battle might be yours, but you aren't meant to fight alone. It might be yours, but you're not meant to fight alone. See, in the story we see eventually Moses becomes tired. And there's several instances like this where we begin to see into humanity in the Bible, but this is certainly one of them. Moses, this leader that was chosen by God to take the Israelites out of Egypt, the man who saw the burning bush, the man who spoke to God face to face like a friend speaks to a friend, the man who stretched out his staff and watched the sea divide, that same man became tired. Faithful people will get tired. Strong leaders will get tired. Spiritual people will get tired. And this moment reveals something powerful about God's design. God never intended his people to fight alone. That's not how he designed us. In this story, it's Aaron and Hur who step in. They find a stone for Moses to sit on. One stands on each side of him, and they lift his arms when he grows tired. And as long as his arms stay raised, Israel wins. Victory came that day in this battle because Moses didn't stand alone. Listen to this. Isolation weakens believers, but community will strengthen them. See, God designed us for community. He designed us to stand shoulder to shoulder, linking arms with the people of God around us. That's why he calls us to gather with other believers. And there's so many things I love about our gatherings, but this is one of them. And maybe we haven't been walking in the full reality of what this means for us, but we can. And so I hope that as we go through this next point, finish out this next point, that something begins to sink into not just our mind. I don't want this to be a piece of knowledge and just like a aha. I want this to be something that transforms our life. Because as we're being transformed, if we can grasp this and begin to walk out in the design that God has for us, it means the people around us are strengthened as well. I know because it's in my nature, it's really easy to fight alone. When battles come, it's really easy to think that I can do it on my own. But this is what I've come to understand in my life. Maybe it's true for you too. Sometimes it's pride that keeps me from speaking up. Sometimes it's embarrassment. Sometimes I have this immense feeling of I should be strong enough to handle this. Sometimes if I'm honest, I just don't want other people to know what I'm going through. But even those thoughts that I would have, and I would think that those are being inundated into my mind because the enemy knows how to get me, but those things aren't according to God's design. Maybe I'm strong, maybe I'm not, but I know this. I wasn't designed to walk it alone. You weren't designed to walk it alone. Victory comes through the quiet strength of faithful people standing beside you. We just have to invite them into the battle. And we can't use human nature as an excuse. And there's so many reasons why we would withdraw. I mean, I've been in ministry for a few decades, and so I've seen it happen time and time again, and it's never a healthy thing. When one of our church family members, maybe they miss one Sunday, then it's 2 Sundays, and it's 3 Sundays, I can almost guarantee that they're withdrawing from something and not necessarily people. If we look back to the Garden of Eden, what was the first thing when Adam and Eve sinned? What'd they do? They hid. I mean, God knew where they were at, but he comes looking for them and calling their name. Listen, that's part of our fallen nature, but it's not part of God's design for us. And I know it's difficult if you're struggling with a sin. Like, I don't know anybody that's just really excited about, man, I can't wait till I get to church on Sunday so I can tell everybody how much I've messed up. Anybody ever think that? I don't know of anybody that goes, man, that sin was tremendous. I can't wait to tell somebody. But what we see in Scripture is God has designed us. Part of our design is to draw people in because that's a battle that we can't fight alone. And so if you find yourself succumbing to temptation over and over and over again, pull somebody in and let them fight with you. We can't be embarrassed enough or prideful enough to invite somebody to walk with us. And I get it. Because it's something that I fight with myself. This is what we should be saying. Instead of withdrawing, instead of hiding, instead of not telling anybody, we should be saying, and listen, that can happen on Sunday morning when you come into this place. I think it's a beautiful place to come and say something like this: I need help. So right in the middle of worship, I know songs are being sung and there's stuff happening on stage, but right in the middle of worship, you can leave your seat and you can go to somebody and say, hey, I need you to pray with me. See, that's living by the design that God has designed us with, especially as a church family. That we would say, can you walk with me through this? Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10. It'll be on the screen. You don't have to turn there, but Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10 says this: 2 people are better than one. Doesn't take much to do that math. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Listen, the enemy is gonna push you and try to compel you to withdraw and to hide, and I'm saying don't. And when he tries to compel you to be quiet, to keep it to yourself, don't. Invite somebody into the same battle that you're fighting. Listen, this is revealing the importance of who we are as a church family. And listen, I get it. There's other church families across our community that are wonderful. This is my experience. This is where God has me. So I'm specifically talking about Grace. But he has designed us to be a church family. We are adopted children of God, which means then we're more just attending a service together. We're brothers and sisters, and God has designed it that way. Church isn't a place for us to attend. It's not an event that we put on the calendar. And when you come in on a Sunday morning and you're feeling strong, there's somebody beside you that might be weak. And he's called you here for that moment, for that person. This is God's design, and we need to walk in that. We don't just attend. We don't just listen and then leave. Biblically, the church is a community of believers who fight battles together. I want you to look around real quick. Don't make eye contact for too long because that just gets really weird. But look around the room, see a few faces, see a few people in the room, because the people that are in this room are the people that God has called you to walk alongside, and vice versa, so that we can fight these battles together. We have to know that we're not alone. Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25. This is what it says. This should be happening. Listen, I get it. There's a way that we do church, and I'm not fond of all the ways that we do church. It just seems to fit our culture, but when I look in Scripture, it's something far different. But I'm about to read Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. Like, this should be a description of what happens on a Sunday morning. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. We see something very concrete. What should we be doing on Sunday morning? Motivating each other to acts of love and good works. Verse 25 says, and let us not neglect our meeting together. This is why, because the people that are sitting beside you and behind you and in front of you, they need you to walk alongside them. Let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Boy, that's a pretty hot topic these days, isn't it? Jesus is coming back today. Right now, he's coming back. Right? He is coming back. And I think we stay excited about it until he does. But until he decides, until God, the Father, decides when the Son will return, these are the things that we should be doing as a church family, as the body of Christ, as the family of God. Motivating each other, encouraging, making sure that we're here together, gathering, or maybe in a smaller group throughout the week. He's designed us to be brothers and sisters, people who will pray for one another. People who will show up in hard times. People who will lift arms when someone gets tired. Listen, some of the greatest spiritual victories in life happen because someone stood beside you. Someone prayed when you were weak. Someone encouraged you when you were discouraged. Someone reminded you of truth when you were ready to quit. That's what we see happening literally in the text with Aaron and Hur. I don't know if God was speaking to them. I don't know what would have caused them to think maybe it was just noticing what was happening on the battlefield. But Aaron and Hur come right alongside a tired leader, a weary leader, to hold his hands up. And in church, we need to be Aaron's and Hurs, because there's people right around us that come in on a Sunday morning, and man, they have been beaten up in the past week. There's church family members that come in and, man, they're struggling. Maybe it's a sin issue. Maybe it's a financial issue. Maybe it's just an emotional issue. They're struggling. And we need to come in, and part of what we should be doing on a Sunday morning, one, we can pray, God, lead me to someone. Lead me to someone to pray with, to pray for. But two, I think like Aaron and Hur, let's just be observant. Let's just be observant. Now, every once in a while, somebody falls asleep in my message, and I'm okay with that. We got it on video. We know who you are. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We see you from the back. I don't think we have anything. Hey, Chris, let's turn this camera just to catch people. No, I'm kidding. We won't do that. But let's be observant. It's not very hard to find someone who looks discouraged or someone who looks tired or someone who looks like, excuse the term, they've had a hell of a week. Let's be observant. Let's be Aaron and Hur. We don't even have to ask them for permission. Just approach them and say, hey, let me pray with you. I don't know if anything's going on. If there's something you want to share it. But let me just pray with you. Let's be that. People who lift each other up. People who refuse to let anyone fall alone. People who would say, listen, I can see you're in a battle. I'm fighting with you. I'm fighting with you. You know, for us at Grace, I think this is one of the reasons we emphasize, serving and building teams. Because we've come to find this out. Church family isn't just about sitting in rows. It's about locking arms in battle. And one of the best ways to do that is by serving alongside each other. Some of you probably have many testimonies of relationships that you built simply by serving. All right, so let's get back to Aaron and Hur. They're holding Moses' arms. This shows us this. They have somewhat of an understanding that this isn't going to happen alone. It's not just on Moses' shoulders. But that moment also exposes some deeper issues. If Moses needed help during one battle, what would happen when the weight of leading an entire nation rested on his shoulders every day? And that's exactly what we see in Exodus chapter 18. We see Jethro comes into the picture, but Moses had people who could hold his arms up, but he didn't yet have a leadership structure that could carry the mission. So if you're taking notes, here's another point. Victory is sustained through shared leadership. If you remember Jethro is Moses' father-in-law. He's in Midian right now, but he decides that after all the events, he's going to come visit Moses. Now, this is after the battle. I'm sure Jethro has heard all the stories because it was circulating, because that's how humanity is. Did you just see what happened with Moses? Right? Jethro hears all these stories. He decides to come visit his son-in-law, Moses. He's amazed at what he's heard about and what was witnessed happening through God's power and strength as Moses was leading. But this is what Jethro finds. Every day, the Bible says, Moses, let's get a clear picture. So the Bible indicates somewhere around 600,000 men. So we're probably talking closer to around 2 million people to include women and children, right? So one man, Moses, is leading, let's just say 2 million. 2 million people. So when Jethro comes, this is what he finds. Every day, Moses was setting up a chair. I don't know if he drug it out every day, if it just sat there. But Jethro comes and he finds Moses every morning coming and sitting in a chair and helping with disputes among the people. I mean, just imagine some little squabbles you've had with family and friends or coworkers or neighbors. This is 2 million people going through all that they're going through. But Moses, after this amazing battle, amazing victory, Moses finds himself where he comes and every morning he's sitting in this chair and he's just hearing from, somebody come and say, yo, dude's goat got into my yard and ate my guavas. I don't know why I thought of guavas. Do they grow there? Yo, dude's goat keeps getting in my yard, right? That type of thing. Jethro witnesses that. And this is what he says. This is what he says to Moses. Exodus chapter 18, verses 17 and 18. Yo, Mo, this isn't good. This isn't good. You're going to wear yourself out. And not only that, that's a concern. You're going to wear yourself out and the people too. He says, this job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Don't you love Jethro? It seems like him and his son-in-law had a good relationship. I know that I had a great relationship with my father-in-law. But Jethro comes around and he doesn't beat around the burning bush. Thank you for the few chuckles. I was hoping for more. He doesn't beat around the bush. He gets right to it. He's like, Moses, this isn't good for you. And more than that, it's not good for your people. Listen, you're on mission and you can't do this alone. So the advice that he gives is wonderful advice. It's pretty simple, but look at Exodus chapter 18, verse 21. Jethro says to Moses, select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Apparently that was an issue. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. If you've been in church leadership or any type of leadership at all, man, I have seen this verse used over and over and over for, leadership strategies. But this comes straight from Jethro. After seeing what's happening, he gives Moses this fantastic advice. What is he doing? He's introducing delegated leadership. And if you work for an organization, a large organization, you know how important that is. Whether you're one towards the top or one towards the bottom, delegation is always extremely important. And this becomes a foundational spiritual principle for God's people. Because of this, God's work expands when leadership multiplies. Moses wasn't meant to carry the entire nation alone. The mission was much bigger than just him. And this principle still applies to church today and to the church family today. Going back to, you weren't designed to walk alone. You weren't designed to fight alone. I think at Grace we do a pretty good job. We work really hard to cultivate, to build a healthy volunteer culture. And we do that for a few reasons. The first reason is this: because we know that serving helps us become more like Jesus. Mark 10:45 says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." The second thing we know is ministry grows when people participate. See, Grace needs you, every one of you. Because not one person in this room can reach and touch every other person in this room. And it's my heart, man, I don't want anybody to fall through the cracks. And it becomes a little more difficult in the culture that we live in today because a lot of people are joining us online. We have about 150 or so that join us online almost every Sunday. Now, some of them will also be here next Sunday, and maybe that's you too. You won't be here next Sunday. Like, it's my heart that nobody falls through the crack because I know I'm there too. That we all face junk throughout the week. We all face hardship throughout the week. Life isn't perfect. So when we come to this place, God has designed it for us to come and to minister to each other. And so we want to cultivate this volunteer base only because it's more people that are looking out for the whole. And let me say this, you don't have to have an official title or official role to do that. You could be one who kind of flies under the radar, but every Sunday morning you're praying for at least 5 people before you leave. Or encouraging 5 people before you leave. Like, we want to keep building that. One, we know, like, it's not all on one person. It's certainly not all on me. I couldn't do it. I certainly couldn't do it without our staff. I couldn't do it without some incredible volunteers. Mark Brissenden, he actually just walked through the door. I think the dude, is serving 100 hours a week volunteering. And that's hardly an exaggeration. God's designed us to come alongside each other so that nobody falls through the cracks, that everybody is ministered to. And so we need you. Your church family needs you, and we want to keep building upon that. Let me give you this illustration as we begin to close. During the Civil War, there were moments when soldiers would lose sight of their commanders in the chaos of battle. Smoke would fill the battlefield. Gunfire and artillery thundered all around them. Men were running in every direction. And in those moments, soldiers would look for one thing. They would look for their banner. The banner was the flag carried into battle. As long as the soldiers could see the banner, they knew 3 things: where to stand, where to move, and who they belonged to. And as long as the banner was standing, they knew the battle wasn't lost. That's why when Moses finished the battle with Amalek, he built an altar. We see that in chapter 17, verse 15. He builds the altar and he names the altar this: "The Lord is my banner, Yahweh Nisi." See, Moses was declaring something powerful. Israel didn't win because they were stronger. They didn't win because they had a better strategy. They won because they understood that the Lord himself was their banner. The same is true for us. When life gets confusing, and it will, when battles feel overwhelming, and they will, when you feel like you don't have the strength to keep going, and you will, you look to the banner, Yahweh Nisi. The Lord is our banner. He's our strength. He's still fighting for his people. So when you face battles in life, remember these things. And they're straight from the text. Lift your hands to God. Link your arms with others. And then learn to share the load. Victory rarely comes through our own strength alone. It comes through dependence on God, community with his people, and shared leadership. So listen, you'll face another battle. I know everybody in the room has before, and we will again. Just remember, Yahweh Nisi. The Lord is our banner. Let's close our eyes.